Kaylee O'Kane from the Kelly Engineering Services talking about connection, the internet, networking in your resume, followed by Mark Saltrelli, the Vice President of Engineering at Kelly, and that's really great. Finally, we have another third speaker, Zubair Anwar. He's one of our ASQ gurus around industry and quality 4.0. So I'm really excited tonight. I'm so thrilled to see everybody here and wanted to give you sort of an official welcome. And also, before we dive in, make a plug for our QMD annual general meeting, which we're going to have on December the 5th. So more on that to come, where it's a chance for us to report out to all of you, the members, and all the great things we've done this year. So welcome, and I'm going to hand it over to Doug and Carol, who have really put this thing together, and let them take it from here. So go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Loveland, and I'm the Vice Chair Member Leader in ASQ. Doug is the other half of this team. He is doing all the WebEx, and he's going to be proctoring the Q&A. So tonight's event is going to be recorded. So if you cannot stay on, or if you want to recommend other people to watch this, they can always jump on ASQ later and pick it up and watch it. And as we said, Mark is going to be our first speaker. He's from 6 to 6:30. Then we're going to have a short break. The next section will start at 6:45. So that way, if you need to jump up and do something, answer an email or voicemail, you can. And then we'll go on to the next speaker. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go right into the PowerPoint. But good afternoon, good evening, good morning, maybe to some calling in from another country. But my name is Mark Saltrelli. I'm the Vice President of Kelly Engineering, and I focus on our engineering recruiting delivery within the U.S. as well as Canada. So today, I'm really excited. As you all know, when it comes to recruiting and it comes to preparing yourself for the workforce or trying to find what's next in your career, right? That next part is going to the interview, whether that could be a virtual interview, a phone interview, whatever the case may be. Being prepared, understanding what to do, having that etiquette, having some of those understandings before going in is going to set you apart from the rest, as well as set you up for success. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes just kind of going over some of the phone interview etiquette and behaviors, but also this is stuff that we also emphasize with our recruiters when we talk to talent, when we're preparing them when they're going into their interviews as well. So really quick, I want to just kind of give you guys a little highlight of what Kelly Engineering is before I kind of go into myself, as well as some of the information that I'm going to be providing you. But if you don't know, Kelly Engineering, we're the third largest engineering staffing firm in the U.S. We place over 10,000 engineering employees a year, 4.6 thousand of those, any given day. And we actually, one statistic that we're very proud of is 30% of our engineering placements are women. So we have a deep specialty experience, from automation to wind and solar, from alternative energy to vision systems and EV. So we're definitely one of the top, if not the top, engineering services providers throughout the country. And I'm very proud to be working for such an incredible organization. A little bit about myself. I attended Mercyhurst University with a graduate science degree in business management and a minor in mathematics. I started my career actually in engineering recruiting, as well as having about 10 plus years in talent acquisition. Some fun facts about myself. You might hear we were just talking about accents. I do have some long A's and some long R's, and that's because I was born and raised in Rochester, New York, upstate New York, right in between Buffalo. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so inundated with Star Wars to the point where my second child is named Luke after Luke Skywalker, and that is the truth. While I was at Mercyhurst, just another fun fact, I won a Division II national championship there while playing lacrosse. So moving on, I think one thing that I'd love to start with is when you talk about phone interviews, interview etiquette, and things like that, there's a wrong way and there's a right way, and then there's a what are you thinking way. And you can probably envision some of these things, so like think about it, multitasking, trying to eat a sandwich, trying to do your work and be on the phone, right? Texting, driving, drinking your coffee in the morning, not the ideal phone interview etiquette. Trying to iron your clothes and work and have your baby, no, 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 right? So we live in a busy environment. We live in such an accessible environment where we can multitask more than we ever could before, right? It's very easy for us to get multiple things done because we're trying to get them done so we can move on to the next thing. When it comes to interviewing, it's so crucial to be in an environment where it's distraction free, you're focused, you're not multitasking, and you're prompt and ready to go for the next question. So what does that look like? Looks like maybe right in front of a computer. Maybe you have your resume on the other side of the screen. You have some headphones so you can listen in. You don't need to hold a phone, right? You have your resume in front of you. You're excited. You're in a quiet environment. There's no one around you. You're not in a car. Again, studio type of environment. Okay. These are what the right way is. Okay. So for those that do get a phone interview, it is challenging to find an environment that is distraction free, right? But having the ability to take the time to find that distraction free environment, to carve out some time, is going to set you up for success. Okay. So I wanted to start just by talking about that environment because I think all of us could say we've probably been in some of these scenarios, right? You're busy, you're on the phone. Oh, you know what? I'll just take it in my car. I'll go get it while I get coffee, right? While we think it's good and we think we're not distracted, it's the audience member that hears the distraction actually on the other side. So moving on, I wanted to talk about that environment, but also setting up. And I have some funny things that kind of come with it, but I promise they're good. So going back into what I originally mentioned, a quiet and distraction-free environment at a desk or table, not on a couch, right? Not on just a chair, but somewhere where you feel stable and secure, just as if you were meeting someone for a face-to-face interview, okay? The second one is, I would say, the most important one. Wear shoes. Mark, what are you talking about? I'm going to wear clothes. Like, why the emphasis on shoes? So I'm an athlete, okay? And as an athlete, I always have to make sure I have good footwear because, anything that I do when it comes to feet, it's going to mess up my back, whatever the case may be, right? But it's even longer than that. So a couple of years ago, a university did a study on how people who wear shoes at a desk job are actually more productive and focused than ones who take their shoes off. And I don't know if anybody's experienced that, but it really does hold true. So when it comes to a phone interview, wear shoes. Why? The shoes actually give you support because often you might get nervous, right? But also the shoes keep you grounded. Okay. So while it sounds funny on paper and you're probably like, oh my gosh, this doesn't seem, like the biggest thing in the world, it really does make a difference. And if you don't think so, try it. Okay. The next thing that I'm very adamant about is using wired headphones as your microphone. Using your phone on an interview like this gives you the ability to just get more distracted. But also, do you know how many times I hang up on people because I hit this button by accident, or I raise the volume by accident, whatever the case may be, or I drop my phone? Too often. So instead, use headphones to keep your hands free, because one thing that I'm going to mention is making sure you have a resume in front of you, right, that you can see, because that's what they're looking at. A job description as well, right, of the job that you're interviewing for, as well as having, preset questions to ask the interviewers. as well as a notebook and pen. So in case they ask you to go through a situation or sometimes a math problem, whatever the case may be, your hands are free and you don't have to say, oh, wait a minute, whatever the case may be, right? Let your hands be free. But also too, when it actually comes to the audio side of things, the headset audio microphones are condensed to make your voice even more clear. Often on these phones, sometimes it's trying to, use other scenarios and background noises to keep things kind of muffled. And often it might make you sound like you're far away when really you're not. So when you use headphones from the audience, you actually sound more clear. So just from like a setup perspective, again, quiet and distraction-free environment, plan ahead, right? Libraries, schools, whatever the case may be. Wear shoes. I promise you feel more productive. Even if you're not going in for a phone interview or you're just working from home, ever since I've been wearing shoes and I work from home every single day, I do feel more productive. It is a strange thing, but I promise it works. Using wired headphones so you can be distraction free, so your hands are free, so this way you can still look at whether it's your resume, the job description, being able to get to your notebook, etc. This next piece, having preset questions, I will say is probably one of the most part of this. Having preset questions is important because think about when we were all in school, right? Teacher does a lecture for an hour and the teacher goes, anybody have any questions? And the room's silent, right? That's what an interviewer feels like too. You just got done having a good conversation, talking about the company, talking about the job, right? They want to hear something from you about your interest in the company, the role, the responsibilities, etc. So when we set up preset questions, right, we're always talking about, hey, a preset question might be, what is this job's goals in the first 30, 60, 90 days? What does this job look like in 5 years, right? What does the team size look like? Again, investing questions that the company obviously makes you feel like you're invested in this role, you're invested in this opportunity, right? But when you go in and you're not prepared to ask preset questions and you just end an interview, I get the sheebies when I hear an interview end or I'm interviewing someone and I say, do you have any questions? And I hear this and I wish I had a dime for every time I hear this, but I hear, nope, I'm good. And for me, it's like the biggest, oof, that's tough, right? And this is coming from me as a hiring manager, right? And you would feel the same way if you were interviewing people as well. You just got done spending 30 minutes talking about selling yourself, selling the company, selling the role, right? Whatever the case may be, right? Getting personal potentially, right? And then to end it with not wrapping something up, right? So that preset questions, in addition to preparing yourself for the environment, having wired headphones, and I think I saw a question on why, and I'll get to that again. But the biggest thing that I would always make sure is prepare yourself to have questions to ask, even if I'm always one to say measure twice, cut once. So even if you come up with 10 or 15 questions, and even throughout the interview, maybe some of those questions get answered, that's fine. You still have maybe 5 or more you can get to, right? But to not ask questions is not gonna help you. So the question I think I saw, why the difference between wired headphones versus wireless? Wireless, I'm a musician. I'm actually in my music studio right now. Everything that I do besides my internet is wired in. Why? Is because one, I have an audio engineering background. Anything that's wired in directly to a device has no delay latency. And what I mean by that is your wireless headphones work off of RF technology, right? You probably won't notice that there is latency with it, but not only do you deal with latency with wireless, but if your internet goes out, if your phone dies, or whatever the case may be, if you're not wired in or whatever the case may be, you're stuck with just two pods, really, essentially. So I always like, and maybe it's a musician in me, I always wire in to everything with what I do, because I find that there's less mistakes, less latency, less delays, and less problems. And also too, having the wired headphones and or using headphones at all. Again, my biggest thing is, you can see I like to talk with my hands, but I also like to have things in front of me that I can touch and hold and look at while I'm on the interview versus holding a phone. So that's kind of environment and setup. And this, again, this isn't rocket science. A lot of this is probably the norm, but I'm sure this might be the first time you're hearing, yeah, you make sure you're wearing shoes for your phone interview. And I promise it makes a difference. So moving on, when it comes to even further preparation, and this is something that we do at Kelly Engineering with our talent. And a lot of it does start with consulting with the customer of what is the phone interview style, right? Is it going to be behavioral? Is it going to be a situational where it's a STAR method, right? Situational, task, actions, results. Or is it going to be technical, right? Having that information is crucial. So if you are going into a phone interview and you're either working with a recruiter or a company, right? Having the understanding of, hey, what type of interview am I going into, right? They should be able to answer that for you. Oh, this manager likes to do a phone interview to do a behavioral assessment. Or, hey, they're really going to focus on technical for the phone interview first. Or, hey, this is just going to be more of a cultural fit. Having that is very, very important, but it also helps you to prepare, because a behavioral interview is very different than technical, right? If you are a quality engineer, right, and you're going to go into a technical interview, right, you better be talking about some of the things that come to the technical job.
Not on a wedding dress.
So understanding that interview style going in, right, is important. How you find that out? The other piece that I'm going to mention is researching your audience. This is a crucial one. This is something that
Can you please mute yourself? Aside from the instructor, if you're not an instructor, please mute.
I wonder if I can't do it. All right, let me go back.
Ramesh, if you could mute yourself, Ramesh.
Researching your audience on LinkedIn is pretty important as well. This is something that at Kelly Engineering, as recruiters, we help try to connect the dots, because there's a lot of opportunities where that hiring manager might have went to your high school, right? They might have went to the same college. They might have came from the same company you came from, right? There might be connections in that, or they might have a career path that is similar to yours, right? And what better way to go into an interview to have something going in to compare to, right? Everybody feels comfortable when they have something to talk about that's relatable to each other, right? But even if you don't have anything that's relative, everybody and anybody loves when they hear, hey, I heard you went to so-and-so university, saw on your LinkedIn, I graduated, with that major, but from this, right? It makes the interviewer not only feel good, but it just makes you look like you've done your due diligence on understand the audience that's in front of you. It's very easy, right? Whether it's the HR person you're talking to, the hiring manager, a VP, or even if they're not on LinkedIn, but they have a company profile, looking at their posts and looking at things to help you, okay? Understanding what the company does as well as recent any news. So we always prepare our candidates on making sure we are providing them the company values, their mission, what they've done, mergers and acquisitions. Hey, in the recent news, John Deere has done X, Y, and Z, right? mention that, or whatever the case may be. Trimble just was able to acquire these companies to help with their navigation systems. When you have an interest and you can connect the dots with the company, that is something that can really help, right? And what's great, and nowadays with everything so accessible, Google News and type in a company, you'll be able to find some of those really cool informations, right? And again, I've been on the other side when an interviewee has come to me and has brought news about Kelly history that makes me even feel good, right? So which is really nice. The other piece that's really important too, because it's going to be part of questioning, is making sure you understand the job and can explain it clearly in your own words. Okay, so this is pretty key too, because I will say, as we get into maybe the 5-minute mark of the interview, maybe the 10-minute mark, usually one of the questions is, so what do you know about the job? Right? And you want to be able to recite the job in a way that makes sense to you, right? But also offer it up to the interviewer. That's my impression. Did I miss anything? Right? And that way they can say, yep, you're right on, or hey, well, yeah, you're right on, but these are a couple other things that maybe you're missing out of it, which is fine. Opens the conversation. But again, as you can kind of see in these themes, you're preparing yourself to have good conversations and connection points versus dead air. Okay? Going back to the last part that I mentioned, have preset questions ready to ask in the interview, right? If you're doing your due diligence on figuring out the interview style, if you're figuring out the audience, if you're understanding and doing your research on the company and doing any news, right? Understanding the job, whatever the case may be, all that preparation should also be able to give you the questions you want to bring to the table, whether it's within the interview or near the end of the interview. Moving on to the last piece, when it comes to the etiquette and the behavior, obviously this is a status quo, right? For the most part, this is probably not new to anybody, but it's important that we remember these things. Obviously, greet and thanking the interviewer, warmly and professionally, starting out, right? Can't go wrong. Speaking clearly and confidently. Goes back to why I want to use wired headphones and things like that. When you have things in hand, you often your brain tends to go all over the place. So when you're focused and you have hands free, you actually feel a little bit more confident, right? So as you go through active listening or listening how confident your responses are, right? That is going to showcase a lot. So having confident answers absolutely is good. But again, you gain that confidence by your preparation, right? By preparing yourself on, okay, here's my resume, here's what they're looking at, here's some of the questions that they might ask, here's the job description. Okay, I hit this, and this, right? That confidence builds by preparation, okay? Active listening, right, is huge. Being able to give the interviewer time to either elaborate a question, right, whatever the case may be. Listen first. I always kind of say within a phone interview, listen first, count to Mississippi or say Mississippi in your head, right? Just to give you a pause and then answer, right? Respond thoughtfully and concisely. The last thing you want to do is talk over each other, right? Or interrupt each other. While you might feel like hey, I know the answer to the question, you want to show your intent and want to be maybe aggressive because you're so excited that you know the answer to this, whatever the case may be, still give that air, because again, you're making a lot of assumptions in a phone interview. You're making assumptions that, oh, well, I'm saying an answer so fast, they're going to like that I answered that so fast, right? Well, that not might be the case. They might say, well, wait a minute, I wasn't even done saying what I wanted to say, and you just kind of interrupted me. So I always kind of play by the rule, But as interviewers kind of say what they need to say, obviously listen, but at each moment, I always say count to Mississippi or say Mississippi in your head, and then give a response, right? This way, one, you have digested what they just said. You have now given your time to process that, and now you can actually respond thoughtfully, concisely, without interrupting, etc. When you come to ensuring that you do ask questions at the end of the interview, that's, again, I keep talking about it, that's probably one of the most important pieces, ensuring you do have some questions. Identify potential next steps. This is something that we miss a lot. This is something that we forget about. It's something where, I just explained when I say, hey, do you have any questions? And they say, nope, I'm good. I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe they are going to ask about next steps. Like what happens after this? Identifying potential next steps could also give you an understanding of how this interview actually played out, right? So for example, if you say, hey, I thought we talked about X, Y, and Z. I feel very confident about these things and what you're looking for. I'm really excited about this. What's the next step after this phone interview? And if the manager says, oh, we'll see. Well, that's not really a confident answer, right? But if they say, yes, we had a really great interview. We want to set you up with a panel interview with X, Y, Z. What's your availability, right? You're forward thinking. So whether you feel like you've bombed the interview or feel like you've done well, identifying potential next steps makes you a forward thinker, right? It's thinking about, okay, what's next? What can I do to set you up for success in the next interview? What can I do in preparation of that? Close up that interview by expressing your interest and why you're a great fit, right? Again, it comes with preparation. As you identify the job that you're interviewing for, as you review it based on your resume that you have and your skill set, you should be able to sell yourself. If you go into that interview and you don't feel confident you can do the job, then how'd you get the phone interview, right? So you have that opportunity, okay? You have that opportunity to close the loop, put something in a bow, and say, week one, I appreciate your time. I really appreciate what you've walked me through about the job. My experience jives with X, Y, and Z. I'm excited. Again, all those things you can button up, and it's a good closer, right, for yourself. And obviously thanking the interviewer for their time. One thing that I would also ask too is, it's thank you letters are hard to come by nowadays. At Kelly Engineering, we really prep our talent to go above and beyond. So even after phone interviews, we still ask our talent to follow up with a thank you letter email, right? And that's something that we work with them on, because we know, one, managers are so busy doing their day-to-day job, right? They might be interviewing 10 people, and guess what? I've interviewed 20 people before, and usually the 3 people that gave me a thank you note after the phone interview, guess who the finalists were? Those 3, right? Because those are the last people I remember, okay? Because I was so busy and things like that, right? So that stuff goes such a long way. But with that being said, there's a ton of opportunity to always get better. One thing at Kelly Engineering is we always try to prepare our talent with every type of interview they're going to go in. Whether it's preparing them, giving them we have different documents and going through, a role play. Hey, I'm going to ask you this. What's your answer going to say? I don't think that's a good answer. Let's reel it back. We're really the talent advocate to not only set them up for success, but we know as a recruiting company, our job is to put people to work. Our job is to make careers happen, right? It's our job to set you up for success and not set you up for failure. So, one thing that I wanted to branch out on is, one, I'm always active on LinkedIn. You'll see me a lot, as well as my partner Kaylee. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, as well as you can chat with me, whatever the case may be. Hey, Mark, I'm looking for a job. Whatever the case. Hey, I just need another pair of eyes or thoughts. I'm open. I know as Kaylee is as well. But I'm really looking forward to one, how this can help you and help others, but also answer any questions that come with it. So I think I did see some questions that did come through. So Doug, do you want me to read out some of those questions?
Yeah, go ahead. You can just read them off the chat. You can see it, right? That's good.
I think so. Oh, here we go.
I could always jump.
Oh, I have one question.
Okay.
This is Sharif from Bangladesh. I have one question that what is the limitation phone interview?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes.
Can you say that again, Sharif?
Yes. My question is, what is the limitation phone interview?
Limitation in what terms?
Term is I'm asking you what is the limitations? I mean, can I express smoothly or frankly to phone interview than face-to-face interview?
Yeah. Yeah, Doug, I don't know if you were saying something.
No.
Oh, so I think from what my understanding is, and maybe I can rephrase your question. Maybe what's the differences between taking a phone interview versus maybe an in-person interview?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say, most of the time phone interviews is like your first kind of introduction for the most part, and then it proceeds to another second interview, depending on what the job is. So like, for example, we work with a lot of contingent labor and contingent type of opportunities where they need people yesterday. Sometimes, depending on what the role that they're looking for, they'll do a quick phone interview that's maybe more situational and technical to just ensure that they have the right skill set and then do an offer right after that. Typically, though, most times start with a phone interview with a typical introduction. Usually it's more behavioral for maybe a cultural fit. Sometimes on the higher technical side, they might just do a quick little technical assessment type of interview. And then once that kind of is over with, depending on how that interview went well, they'll then progress to either a panel phone interview and or an on-site face-to-face interview.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let me see if I can pick up a couple really quick.
There's a question that says on LinkedIn, hiring managers can see that we looked at their profile before or after the interview. Has any research indicated if that influences the hiring decision?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can say from perspective for me, when I have an open position and the talent that I'll be interviewing looks at my profile, for me, it looks like they're doing their due diligence and looking at the audience, right? So from my perspective, I don't think it's a big deal. If anything, I think for most of us, I think we'll eventually do the same, even with talent. So I haven't really seen much research that has indicated, that influences hiring decision. But for me, in my experience, when I see that the person has viewed my profile and then they're bringing some of that information to the call to connect, it just makes me feel like they're very prepared to know who they're talking to. Kaylee, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. It shows that you've done your due diligence. Don't feel like you're creeping or stalking, if especially you've been given that information by your recruiter or that hiring manager directly, if you're, communicating with them directly, absolutely do your due diligence on them. And it's not only, to interview prep, but to understand where they came from. Can you see yourself working with somebody like this? A lot of people aren't scared to throw their views on LinkedIn and all that good stuff. So just do your due diligence to ensure that you feel comfortable going into the interview as well.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that was really wonderful, Mark. Thank you very much for doing that. We want to be able to get everybody in here. So did you have any more slides, Mark?
Oh, no, I just have Kaylee's, but I know we're going to have a little break and then go into Kaylee's.
Okay, sure. Well,
Yeah, I'd like to give everybody a chance to take a break if they need the time, and then we'll start with Kaylee at 6:45.
Okay, that's a great idea. We do have one more question, Mark.
Okay.
Laura has a question. What's the best way to handle being sick when it conflicts with your interview? Go to the interview and reschedule. Meaning you are in bed. You're sick.
So that is a good one, and I would suggest reschedule it. Yes, for sure.
I think so.
Especially in the age of COVID.
Yeah, for sure. And I would now it's like, okay, well, do I call them and they hear me like I'm coughing? I would email. You don't need to sell that you really are, sick. You could just follow up with a professional email. But I would say have times. I know that's kind of hard because you're like, I don't even know what I have, and maybe it takes a week. But my suggestion is if you're looking to reschedule, try to have some times that might work in the next couple of days that you feel like you could be prepared for. So this way it's a quick little reschedule just on a calendar. Make it a little bit easier for them to reschedule it.
Gotcha. If a necessary, call in dead.
Yeah. Okay. So this was great. I really want to thank Mark for his presentation here. It was very well timed, and I love your pacing and your content. Would it be possible, Mark, for us to have a PDF copies of these slides?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we can then get that.
I sent them to you, Doug.
Oh, I've got them. Oh, I remember. Yes, I've got them. Okay.
Perfect.
So maybe before this is over, can you attach them to the WebEx so people could maybe download them? Or we could put them on my ASQ.
I think maybe what we'll do is we'll put them in my ASQ and we'll send a link to people to access them there. Okay.
Okay, and if people do have more questions, we do have a question and answer period with all three speakers starting from 8 until 8:30. So there is time for more questions. I just want to give people a chance in case they need to go get a drink or something.
That's good. 8 to 8:30 Eastern time. We got to tell them that.
True.
Okay. We will take a break and be back in what?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. All right. Go on.
All right, so our second topic tonight will be with Kaylee O'Kane, and this is going to go from 6:45 to 7:15. Again, we'll have about a 15-minute time period in case we have a little run over. We'll have time for a break, and then the next topic will start at 7:30. So wanted to have you have time with Kaylee. Kaylee is our Senior Engineering Solution Team Leader with Kelly Engineering Solutions. So she works with Mark, and she is going to cover our next topic. Take it away, Kelly. Or Kaylee, sorry.
No worries. I get called that all of the time. And is it okay if I start sharing my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Ready to go. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for having me. Like always, I love ASQ. And Doug, it's nice to see your face again. The last time I saw you was at WQCI in Philly. So very nice to see you again, and very excited to chat with you guys a little bit further on developing your brand on LinkedIn. And I know we spoke briefly about LinkedIn during Mark's presentation, but really excited to dig a little bit deeper into what makes somebody's LinkedIn successful and able to outreach who it needs to outreach to, which most likely are going to be recruiters that are wanting to find people with your specific skill set. In certain scenarios that I've seen, it's, hey, have you done QMS implementation? Have you done a specific audit with the specific ISO, cert? So again, you have to have all of that information on your LinkedIn so we can find you. If it's not on your LinkedIn, a lot of recruiters won't find you. I do pride myself into connecting with people and just having those conversations to pry that information out. But if it is relevant enough to be on your resume, it needs to be on your LinkedIn. So just to throw that out there. I wanted to briefly just let you know who I am. I graduated at Illinois State University back in 2016 with a Bachelor's of Science degree. And I did start engineering recruitment briefly after I graduated college, but I've been in talent acquisition for about 7 years and 5 years in manufacturing executive searches. With that said, fun facts, I always kind of like to break the ice. I was born in Portland, Maine. I love scary movies, and I've never met a stranger. And another one I wanted to throw in there that might surprise a lot of people. I actually just got back from surgery. So I was in an OR today. But I'm good. It was just it was an outpatient surgery, but just funny enough that I just got home. So excited to be here with all of you, and excuse me if I stumble on my words. I'm trying my hardest. And another thing, I got to throw out my child, which is my dog, Huntley Jeff. He's the best. So I like to, just throw his photo on there to make some people smile. With that said, so taking control of your career, what does that look like? How do you do it? Because a lot of people expect, hey, I'm going to start with a specific company and they're going to open, the specific gates so I can climb the ladder. As many of you know, that is just not the case. You have to be aggressive and manufacture your own success. No pun intended. But you have to be aggressive and you have to think long term. And what does that mean? Creating a company development plan. Leverage your company process into that. One quick thing, if people don't know, if you are a member of ASQ, they have your plan your career guides on the website. So once we send this presentation out, or feel free to just jot it down very quickly. But ASQ is in a point to help you guys out to grow your career. So make sure that you leverage ASQ as much as possible. And then this goes without saying, pursue any and all training and development programs that you can. ASQ is a great start, but just continue to climb that ladder, ensuring that, you're just Lean Six Sigma. I mean, come on, people, that's the gold. So just make sure that you continue to do your training, stay up to date on certs. And again, ASQ is such a great organization to be a part of. So you can understand what's coming down the line from, people that make the big decisions. With that said, goes without saying, leverage your tools, follow industry standards, LinkedIn is a great place to do that. And I do like to point this out. So the next slide is going to show you a machinist who, within 5 years, climbed his way to a QA manager, which I just think that's incredible. How did he do that? How does somebody climb that ladder so quickly from being on the floor? What does that look like? So got his journeyman's card. He was doing online school. He was doing the additional certifications that are needed to stand out and make people want to speak to you. And especially becoming an internal auditor, huge thing. So just like to throw that out there. You can see the climb, if you will. But it's just very impressive that, you know, if you take your career into your own hands, anything is possible. So just wanted to point that out. This is probably my favorite slide. So my father was a high level, he actually just retired recently, but he was a high level engineering executive for a company called ABB. And my dad, when interviewing, and I always loved to pick my father's brain on, as an executive, how do you make those hiring decisions? And the simple statement that came out of my father's mouth was, does it pass the so what test? And I'm like, oh, all right. So what that means, if you want to get a little bit more tactical with the meaning, is when you are doing the lines on your, you know, on your resume in regards to what did you accomplish? What did you do? Does it pass the so what test? Meaning, okay, well, what is that information going to do for anyone? Did you contribute to that success? And if so, how? So just keep that in mind. It's very, very important, like I said earlier, to ensure that your LinkedIn profile and your resume, they both match and they both matter. So make sure that you keep that up to date. I've had many people reach out to me, friends, candidates talk to me about, oh my God, and actually my own fiance always would say, if I update my LinkedIn, my employers will know. No, I mean, yes, they might if they're nosy, but that does not matter. And that should not make it so you don't want to update your relevant information, because that's you. That is the way that you're networking, presenting yourself. If you ever get pushback from your manager saying, oh, I noticed that you updated your LinkedIn. Well, guess what? You're at the right place. You can blame it on me. You can say that you joined a presentation that stated the importance of ensuring that your LinkedIn is the same thing as your resume. So do keep that in mind. It's just something that I see all of the time, that people do not update their LinkedIns. It's, okay, I'm a quality engineer. Okay, well, what did you do? There's nothing to establish, well, were you involved with the PPAP process? Were you involved with the supplier quality side? What does that look like? Did you handle customer complaints? Have you ever handled a customer, audit, or vice versa? So very, very important things that need to be on your LinkedIn, because as much as I wish I was a mind reader, I'm not. Even though, again, I wish I was. So just ensure that all of that information is out there. Okay, next slide. How to break it all the way down. How do we build and maintain our professional presence on LinkedIn? First things first, I know a lot of people don't like to do this. Make yourself a profile picture. Fun fact, the profile picture that was on this presentation was AI generated. I don't have time or the want to spend $400 on headshots. You can go pay AI $25 to make you a plethora of headshots based on the pictures that you send them, and they will shoot back a professional headshot that is probably worth around $300 to $400, maybe even $600. That's as much as I've heard people charge for headshots. So first things first, make yourself a profile picture. You do not have an excuse not to. Use LinkedIn. Use the AI features that are all over the internet to possibly get that out for free. And write an attention-grabbing headline. I'm not good at that. So I always refer back to ChatGPT. Use AI. It's there. Let's use it. So, ask ChatGPT to do it for you if you can't think of anything that would, stand out and make your profile pop. And that goes for the same thing with the compelling summary. What have you done? What have you accomplished? What have you worked on? What industries have you been in? What type of ISO certifications have you dealt with, or standards have you dealt with? Get specific. You know, the more information, the merrier. And then obviously what I was saying before, ensure that your work experience is detailed. Again, not a mind reader, wish I was. So make sure you get all that information on there. And then the skills and getting endorsements. It's as easy as going to another friend or peer's profile and endorsing them and asking them, hey, can you shoot me a few endorsements on my profile? It's super easy. It's at the bottom of your profile. You click endorse. It's that easy. In regards to some fun facts / hiring manager insights that I think are pretty interesting. Within 15 minutes, the hiring manager knows whether or not you are fit. They might lie. They might try to, diffuse situations in regards to, uncomfortable conversations. But I do want to let you know, within 15 minutes, most of the time, the hiring manager wants to, they know what they want to do. Whether that's, bringing you on site or potentially even extending you an offer. So with that all said, ensuring that you don't overthink it. There's a lot of facts on here. I just want to throw them on here to ensure that you guys are able to read them. I don't want to go step by step, or, line by line and read them all, but they're interesting. So definitely take a look and ensure that you're engaging within your interview process. Don't get scared of the hiring manager. Don't get scared of the recruiters. You need to ensure that you're asking them, the questions that you want to know. The interview process is the job itself. And us as professionals, Mark, we understand that process, and we understand if you want to, come to us, what maybe is too much to ask. We are more than happy to coach you through those, those types of conversations. I wanted to throw this in here because recently I did mention that my dad went into retirement, and he was asking me, Kaylee, how do I break into contract or consulting work? He cannot sit still. He never has been able to sit still. So he loves consulting. He gets, gigs that are a couple hours at a time, or even a week at a time. He just loves to stay busy and, kind of keep himself entertained. And his work was always his life. So this is something that, like I said, wanted to kind of talk about, is how to brand your LinkedIn towards consultant opportunities. Right at the top, I don't know if you can see my mouse, probably not. Actually, I think I have a little pointer. So right here, throwing what you want to do. What type of consultant are you? What type of experience do you possess? It's funny, like I said, this is my father. So I didn't realize that screenshot was there until right now. But then also branding yourself as an active consultant. Don't get scared. And my dad has a little bit of updating to do because I told my father, what type of consulting gigs have you done? What have you accomplished? What have been the results? So I'm going to have a conversation with my father later in regards to getting this fixed. But fun fact, after my father made these brief fixes, within 24 hours, he had 2 consulting gigs. I'm proud of myself to say that. I'm still very impressed that that was the results, but it really goes to show you, if you're findable, people will find you. So with that said, please make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. I post very frequently fun facts and other good things, but I'm always here to lend a hand when it comes to questions, navigating the interview process, how to come to negotiations at the point of an offer. I'm here to help. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And then a shameless plug, please reach out to Kelly Engineering, reach out to our team. We have an amazing group of professionals that are ready to help. And just so you have my information, it is below. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And with that said, I just wanted to see if anyone had any questions.
Haley, there's a couple questions if you look in the chat.
Yes.
One of them I did see was a couple people asked about the AI software. If you could name any of the ones that were out there.
Absolutely. So there are a couple AI free platforms that are usable in regards to data which I'll name those first. So we have Chat GPT, which is absolutely free to use. And then we have Bard, which is run by Google, and that is BARD. What we've historically found is that Bard is better with data analytics, and Chat GPT is better with writing. For example, getting that headline, doing your summary for your LinkedIn. Make sure to utilize Chat GPT. But again, if you're trying to find specifics, utilize Bard. And I actually do have a funny story. So I had a engineering manager that I currently work with. I'm gonna name drop the company if anyone's heard of it. It's called Masonite. He's the engineering director there, and him and we were grabbing dinner. God, I want to say like it was a year and a half ago. And he goes, I actually used Chat GPT to write a PPAP process, and I took it to my quality manager. He goes, yeah, that looks pretty good. Probably took him, I think he said 5 minutes to input, what he needed to prompt correctly. But it wrote a PPAP process for the product in question. It's insane. It's insane what it can do. Obviously, don't trust it with your whole heart. Ensure that you review it extensively. But just another fun thing that ChatGPT specifically can do for quality professionals. And to answer the other question for the AI headshots, if you Google AI headshots, so many things will pop up. I don't remember the one I used, but there's several of them. And I do believe some of them are free that you can find on your app store, whether you're an Android or iPhone user. And you just enter like 20 photos in of yourself, and then it will generate, custom headshots. So make sure you utilize that. And hey, if you have any questions about it, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to walk you through it.
Thanks, Kaylee.
Kaylee, there's another question that says, what about when you apply for a job and you want to tailor your resume to meet their requirements? These days, it seems if the computers are screening the resumes for keywords, and if you don't have all their keywords, then it seems like you're out of luck.
So yes and no. That's an absolutely amazing point. I feel like, again, you just have to have your standard skill set, certifications that you've utilized, all of that. That should never change based on a resume that you're writing, unless you're a crazy fellow with just, too much information. But for the most part, you're not going to have to tweak it that hard. But what I do suggest, another AI hack, is to take the job description, copy and paste it into ChatGPT, and then copy and paste your resume into ChatGPT and prompt it, meaning ask ChatGPT to rewrite your resume to ensure it's hitting all keywords and asks of that job description. It's very impressive what AI can do if you utilize it correctly.
Kaylee, this is Doug. Another suggestion for using the large language models: tell it what you're going to do with it. I mean, give it some context, and it will do a better job.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that is such a great point. And even down to if you're writing, not to throw myself under the bus, but that is how I typically do my LinkedIn content, is I ask ChatGPT to write me fun posts. And I prompt it based on how I want the tone to sound. If I wanted a little bit more bubbly, more interesting, more engaging. So absolutely, Doug, that is such a great point to bring up. Just ask it. I mean, the prompts, I think that's the biggest problem right now with AI, is people don't know how to prompt it. And as soon as you learn how to actively and correctly prompt AI, you're just going to get amazing results.
Okay, Kaylee, so we have another question. This is, what if you have reached the maximum number of skills that LinkedIn allows you to list, but you still have others to add? Any ideas how to make the most of that area so that the skills will apply for different jobs?
Absolutely, and that is such a great question. So what I would recommend is, underneath the summary, you can write, a lot. You can write a lot. So what I would recommend is, if there are any added skills that you want to ensure that are on your LinkedIn, put it in your summary. So how recruiters can find you on LinkedIn is that we can type in keywords, and those keywords will pull accordingly based on what is in your summary, in your job description area, anything on your profile. So as long as you can type it anywhere on your profile, you will be found. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the skills alone, as long as it's listed somewhere in that profile.
Okay, ready for the next one?
Absolutely.
All right, 2 quick questions. This says, when should you include a cover letter? And also, should you include references in your resume, or is that outdated?
So I love these questions. So I'm going to go to the second one first. So the second one, do you put references in your resume? No, do not do that. Don't do that. The reason why is because if they want to engage to that point, let them ask you. Don't throw that information out there, because I do pride Kelly Engineering in being just a good firm that, has good values. But unfortunately, I have been a part of other firms and seen what they can do with references. And that's cold calling them, bombarding them, asking them for business. So be careful where you put your references. I always put at the bottom of your resume, references available upon request. So don't throw that information out there. Keep that close to the chest until it's asked. And then I'm so sorry. What was the first question?
When should you include a cover letter?
Cover letter. So I'm really hit or miss with cover letters. And Mark, I'd love if you could chime in on this. I personally don't believe cover letters are necessary unless you're interviewing for C-suite level, VP level, director level. I do not think they're necessary. Mark, what are your thoughts on that? Because even with hiring managers, they throw the cover letter out and they'll look at the resume. So yeah. Mark, what have you historically thought about?
It's funny. I just had this conversation recently, and I like to cook. Okay, and I have an Amazon little show, and it'll show me recipes and things like that. I'm sure anybody that's starting to make cookies or whatever, for the holidays, they're all Googling, what's the best cookie recipe. And for some reason, the last couple of years, what they do is they have this whole jargon of how they got to the sugar cookie recipe, and you have to scroll just to get to the ingredients and the step-by-step. That's how I feel about a cover letter. Okay, just tell us what your experience is, right? And we can go from there. I think the piece that is really helpful, especially if you're working with a recruiting agency, is we have the opportunity to sell you, right, in context, not just, off of a resume, but we do a very good job of summarizing the skill sets that you provide, your availability, and some other things. And that tends to jive and work a lot faster because it's a snapshot, boom, of what this person does, their interests, and what maybe their pay might look like, and it moves a lot faster. So unfortunately, I think the cover letter, the days are kind of gone with it. My focus would be beefing up the resume to make sure it has all the information that it needs, kind of like what Kaylee mentioned when it comes to work experiences, but also grammar things, the little things. I'd rather take the time making sure that's tight than just another additional piece of paper. So that's
one thing I did want to add really quickly, because this just sparked a memory of mine. When I've worked on quality positions, I've had several hiring managers from like director level down refuse or decline a resume based on misformatting, because quality professionals should be more aware and be more, precise in regards to even a resume. So keep that in mind, even down to the formatting. So that means ensure that you're saving your resume as a PDF so the formatting doesn't get messed with. So it's precise, pristine, and that there are no misformatting errors or anything like that.
Okay, that's all I saw for now. Question-wise, I'm sure more will come up for 8 o'clock. We'll take a break. The next session starts at 7:30. and goes until 8 o'clock. 8 until 8:30 is question and answers. And thank you so far. Both of you have been great. Oh, and there's Huntley Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Oh, gosh. I am so sorry. I thought I ended the ability to share. Oh, there we go. And there is Huntley Jeff.
And just so you know, right now we're up to 203 participants. So
amazing.
Good job. A lot of people getting good information. And we'll see everybody. You can stay on and we will start back up at 7:30.
Sounds good.
Eastern.
See you guys soon.
Here we go. It is on again, Carol.
All righty. Well, we're back. And I know we will probably still have some people. We did give everyone a break, Zubair, just so you know, they had a break the last 15 minutes. So if they needed to put kids to bed or get kids up to go to school, they had that chance. And Zubair, someone did say that your voice was not very clear. So if you could maybe get closer to your mic or something to make sure you're a little clearer. I know we do have people that will need to get back on if they did take the chance for a biological break or a family break. So we have been running about 200 people. Zubair will be talking about the actual on-site interview, behaviors, what to expect, you know, things are good and bad. And then immediately following his talk, we will have our question and answer time period, and that will have all three speakers. So you'll be able to, if there was something you suddenly thought of that you wanted to ask Mark, or you wanted to ask Kaylee, or you wanted to ask Zubair, you can ask that at that time. All three will be available from 8 to 8:30. And again, this is all being recorded. So if you had to step away and you missed something, you can always get on to my ASQ and watch the recording again to catch anything that you did miss. Zubair, it's all yours. And if everyone could mute themselves, otherwise I will mute all of you so that we don't have to hear other conversations while we're trying to hear the speaker.
Thank you very much, Carol, for inviting me to this very important discussion. And hi, everyone. My name is Zubair Anwar. And in this session, I'm going to share some of the tips and advices for rookies and mid-career professionals on how to appear for job interview, what should be your attitude, and how you should be responding to different questions. So we shall see it from the perspective of the interviewer and the employer. So whatever you respond in an interview, how it is perceived. So before that, a little bit about myself. I'll just skip over these slides. I have been associated with American Society for Quality now over 15, 16 years. And I support ASQ in several roles. So Technical Communities Council Committee on Quality 4, ASQ Award Board, Service Quality Body of Knowledge, and so on and so forth are few of the initiatives that we have taken with ASQ, TCC, and other technical communities. I'll start with my agenda. So as I told you, I'll be going over some tips for preparing the interviews, what are the do's and don'ts, how to handle things on site interview, what is different when you go for a video interview, and what are the general behavior and etiquettes that would help you in landing a job with a high probability. So let's talk about first about preparing for the interview. Now remember that there could be different situations. You could have verbal interviews, and some employers would like to test you before you appear for the verbal interview. So those are screening tests. These could be verbal and these could be written tests. Many employers are offering these days online tests where you have already a number of defined questions where you are supposed to answer them, and these would relate to your specific job you have applied for. So this is very important for you people to know what are the job descriptions. Now remember that job descriptions are the key. I have seen many candidates who would appear for the interview talk about themselves and try to convince the interviewers and the employers about the high level of knowledge that they have got, but they forget to touch upon the specific dimensions in the job description. And probably one of the reasons that they have not thoroughly gone over the job description. Now remember that job descriptions are about the role and the things that you are supposed to carry out during that job. So these would touch upon certain aspects. For example, what are the expectations, what skills they are looking for, what would be the interfaces that you would be dealing inside the organization, outside the organizations. So this is really important. So how to make this really work? You could actually analyze the job descriptions and try to relate those things to your resume. Now that this is where you have to play a very intelligent role. You have to relate and correlate things from what you are expected to perform and what you have done in your past, or how you can do in this organization in a better way. So things have to be connected. This is really important. You should keep it in your mind that the employer or the interviewer may not be just looking for your knowledge level. Remember that this is really crucial for the newbies or the rookies who just graduate from the universities, and they expect, since they have got a lot of new knowledge, and this would help or enable them to land a job. So this may essentially be not working. Why? Because organizations are looking for the skills, abilities, and other traits that collectively are called competencies. So competencies are required for you people to how you are going to apply your knowledge in order to achieve those tasks that would be part of your job once you get it. So this is really important that you see it from a higher perspective. So whenever there is something that you would be asked about, you have to answer it from a pragmatic point of view or practical point of view. Just telling that you know something, a theory that you know about, a quality framework that you know about, may not be sufficient for you to prove your competence. So for example, it would be nice to talk that you know about PDCA cycle, or you know about Durand trilogy. The employer would be more interested in how you are going to apply that knowledge. So remember that for that sake, you should be able to elaborate on the tools side, for example. So how you are going to apply the method, what would be the steps, what would be the expected outcome. On the top of that, how the results would be helping the organizations in achieving the results. Normally, the job descriptions also have got something we call KPIs, key performance indicators, which at the end of the day would speak about your performance in more quantitative or qualitative manner. So that would be your performance at the end of the year or at the end of a term for which you would be appraised. So this is really important. You have to start thinking from this perspective even at the time of the interview. So for example, if a rookie appears up and he or she is asked how you can help the organization, so you should be talking something practical, right? So again, for that, you should be able to comprehend what is required and what is expected. So it would be a good idea to search about the organization, to search about the department, their goals, and the people who are already contributing with that organization, how they are steering the organization or steering the department. For this sake, another very skill would help you, which is called networking, right? So using references would help you. A very important thing is active listening. So whenever you are in an interview, you should be listening very carefully to the interviewer. It may be one person or it may be more persons. So do not just jump to give a reply. Absorb the question, analyze it for a while, take a pause if you need to, or even request the interviewer that you need to think upon this question in order to articulate a great answer. That would be perfectly fine. Interviewer may not be expecting you people just to reply back and just hit back them with an answer. So these are great tips for you people to prepare for the interview. Now remember that if there are screening tests and you have maybe a kind of online test or a written paper test, you should be again able to comprehend the vignettes or the situations that are talking about. So this is an analytical approach for you people to analyze and break down the questions into different pieces. So whether these are a written test or these are verbal tests, you have to have an analytical approach. Mind that organizations would appraise you that how you are going to perform your role. That's number one. And your job would also involve interacting with your peers, seniors, juniors, people inside the organization, people outside the organization. So just try to have those situations on your mind and reply in those perspectives. So it is great if you have a past experience and you could refer that, yes, if this is the case, I can take this approach since I have already solved this situation by taking, for example, this method, or I have taken this approach, or I helped my colleagues. So you have to be very careful with the tricky things, right? So sometimes, interviewer would not only be judging your technical skills, but they would also be judging your interpersonal skills, how you develop an approach, how do you see the conflict resolutions. So we all know that whenever we have a human working on a workplace, we could have, agreements and disagreements. We could have disputes, we could have conflicts, not personal, but professional. For example, talking about the baseline of your project, talking about how you should be reporting some achievement, how you should be informing about a bad incident, things like that. How you would be, addressing a person who is not performing well, how you are going to help or snub him or her. So these are different things that are associated with the performance of a job. And for all this, you got to have interpersonal skills. So remember that on your resume, technical or functional skills may not be sufficient. So whatever reflects on your CV, this has to be explained, elaborated during the interview. This is very important. Remember, there are two important documents that would help you to successfully pass an interview. One of them is job description and another is your resume, right? Remember, how did you get to that interview panel? By applying, by submitting your resume. So when you submitted your resume, there might be something on your resume, for example, your vision or your goal or your captions, your past experience, your projects, your skills, your statement of purpose. So these would have hit the mind of the employer to call you for an interview and give you a chance to practically see on how you have that passion and the skills and the competence on helping them achieving the task on whatever position they are seeking you to employ. So this is very important that you know what you have written on your CV, you really possess those skills, you have done them before if you have mentioned so, and you should be able to explain them during the interview. So remember, don't just jump, don't just react, don't just, try to convince the interviewer in an illogical manner. So what is an illogical and what is a logical manner? I just used some words. I told you, for example, about vignettes, situations that you have handled some situations, you have accomplished some project task in a good way, you have already been into conflict management, you have already handled some projects in a good way, you have been able to drive your teams, you have already been working, for example, in a virtual environment. If you are applying for a remote job or a virtual job, remember that you have the interview is a time slot in which you have to demonstrate all your skills, and for that you have to be ready, not at the time of interview but before that. For example, there is no harm in doing some rehearsals. So for example, just sit in front of the mirror or just talk to some colleagues over the internet or physically or in whatever way you can, and just try to speak out. The selection of the words to respond a question is very important. Your jargon, the language, the terminology speaks of your functional skills, technical skills, and the way you approach people, problems, processes, and the organization. So be careful. An engineer is known by the jargon he or she uses. A doctor is known again by the jargon. You do not need to always display your transcripts or the degrees to the people to tell them that you are an engineer or you are a doctor or you are a lawyer, so on and so forth. So this should be reflected in your jargons. Be methodical. Don't give very generic responses. Don't give definition, right? Always relate things to practical situations. This is the key to successfully pass an interview. And I tell you, this is from my experience. Whenever I would go for an interview overseas or within the country, I would just have two documents to carefully read. Number one is job description. So what is a job description? You should know that. As a quality professional, you should be actually knowing what is a job description. So for example, what should be the level of your, applied methodologies, what should be the level of your interpersonal skills, what should be the level of your technical skills, kind of stuff. For example, you should be able to apply, synthesize, or create, the cognitive abilities I'm talking about. Similarly, your resume, it should be matching with the job description, and this is fundamental. So whenever you apply for an appropriate job, make sure your resume matches with the job description. For example, the role they are looking for, you should have a close match. The skills they want, you should have a close match. So the experience they require should be reflected in your resume. And that will again increase the probability for you to get an interview call. Second chance that you get after applying online or by whatever means you choose is interview. So be conspicuous, right? Don't ask for more time to explain the things. Be concise, precise, to the point. If you need to take break of few seconds to think about, to contemplate before you could answer. So don't just react and don't just answer because you have to. You should be able to respond, like a professional. And for that sake, active listening is very important. What is active listening? Active listening is in fact a skill. It is part of the skill set under emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is in fact something that would help you to better interact with the people, to demonstrate your interpersonal skills, where you should be, raising the tone of your voice a bit higher, a bit lower, where you should be speaking softly, where you should be swift in your response, where you should be absorbing if you are given a feedback in the interview, and you should be able to absorb it, not to react on it. These are very important, but because interviewer may be judging your professional enthusiasm, right? How do you receive a feedback? Impromptu. So you have to actually demonstrate the emotional intelligence skills. And it is not just by going through some articles. So my advice, you take some workshops, attend some trainings, read some stuff. And by the way, you would be able to find a lot of this stuff on ASQ portals, websites, in different technical communities. I'm very happy that Quality Management Division has arranged this webinar today for you people to know what are the tips and advices that would increase the probability of success to land a job through applying properly and engaging in a successful interview session kind of stuff. So I'll move on to the next slide, and this is also very important. So maybe you are applying in an organization which is close to your home, or maybe in another state, maybe in another country. So it is very important that you understand the logistics part. So if it is in your hometown or the place you are living in for the time being, so where is the organization located? Is it nearby? Is it far away? How you are going to manage to reach over there? That's important. Why? Because you have to reach in time. So what time you should leave? Do you have any contingency? If you are taking a subway, you are taking a cab, something goes wrong, what is plan B, kind of stuff. This is really important. And by the way, these are the same tips that we tell people when they are going for a certification exam, that they should know the route, the alternates, the traffic jams, kind of things, so that they could reach on time. This is important. Very important. I already actually mentioned about that. Knowledge about the organization. What's your background knowledge? How did you search that job? How did you apply for that job? Do you know something about the organization? Why it is important? Remember, I told you, you have to explain how you can help the organization. And how do you know that? By doing some search and research on this organization who has called you for an interview. So particularly regarding your expected role department. So if you are applying for a factory job, you're going to work on a plant. So how this factory is producing, what are the processes, where it is located, which technology they are using. Once you know all this, you would be able to use that knowledge in your interview to respond to the, will increase the level of confidence that they would bestow upon you. This is really, guys, this is really important, right? For example, in my past experience, once I was invited for an interview overseas, and I, researched about the organization. And during the interview, I told them, guys, this is your vision, this is your mission. So far, you have been able to come this much closer to your vision, right? And you have this business result, this is your turnover, this is, profitability rate kind of things. Whatever relate to the job function that you are applying for. And in your responses, you have to be very composed. You don't have to, talk absurd. You don't have to just use different pieces of information that you would try to put together and they would not make any sense. So for that sake, body language is very important. We say the face is the index of mind. So whatever you are saying, you should be delivering with conviction. And what does a body language contain? Remember, this is very important, especially for the job interview on site. What is conveyed from your face gestures, eyebrow movements? You are with a reddish face you are replying. If there was a provocative comment from the interviewer, how you are handling it. The professional manners require that you handle questions, feedback with a smiling face. And what comes in again is emotional intelligence. For example, self-regulation, right? You should be able to control your emotions. Don't be reactive, absorb the things. Very important thing, gestures and the movement of your, arms and shoulders and nodding and shrugging, this is very important. So how, for example, when you appear and you enter in the interview room, how you should be able to interact with the people in the first instance. So once you open up the door, you are asked to please get in, it's your turn, or yes, interview panel is available, they are waiting for you. You open up the door and you get in. So what should be the next thing? My suggestion, simulate all this in your mind before you actually reach the place and you actually engage in that session. So saying hi or just not saying anything and sitting on a chair or looking for a chair on. If you are a senior executive and you see people, interviewer are standing and they want to shake hands and you are avoiding it, that could be an issue, right? Because professionalism is all about, manners and etiquette, and this is very important. So the first impression would be the lasting impression. So this is also important. If you are applying for a junior position, just don't get in and just sit on the chair. You may expect someone to say you, please have a seat. So just wait for that. That would be a good idea. That would show the soft aspects of your personality, the professional manners, right? Sometimes, interviewers know that you have a technical and functional capability already mentioned on your CV because they might have searched something about you from the previous employer or the references that you have mentioned in your CV. So they must be calling for the interview to judge the interpersonal skills, the manners and the etiquettes and the behavior that you demonstrate during that interview. That would help them understand and assess, are you good choice for a managerial position, for a senior manager, kind of stuff. So this is important. Body language is very important. You have to, demonstrate positive gestures, right? You have to control your emotions. And you will see whatever I'm talking, it is still connecting to emotional intelligence. And by the way, if the panel allows me, I would like to actually refer the 10 top skills which World Economic Forum has recommended for 2023 and beyond. And of those top 10 skills, active listening and emotional intelligence are very important. And it is all about handling yourself and handling other people. Interviewers are the people whom you have to handle and manage. You have to, face the questions with, a passion. Since you told them you have a passion to work with the organization, so you should be actually demonstrating it by the response of your questions, by your body language. So the body language should match your speech, the the tones, and very important, the eye contact, the movement of hands, the movement of arms, nodding, shrugging, all this should match with the type of response, with the type of question. So just think about it. If you said,
Hey, Zubair, it's
sorry,
8.
Is there anything for me?
It's 8 o'clock, so
Okay.
we need to be starting our question and answer. Can you wrap up in just a minute or two?
Yes, I will. I will.
Awesome.
So
Thank
let me go to the second part, which is about the, these days we have a lot of virtual interviews on Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams, that kind of things. What is important over here is digital body language. It is something which has come up during COVID times. So digital body language is how you behave, how do you understand the camera. For example, all of us right now are connected through Cisco web meeting, but there is something that we are using is our digital body language. So use of emojis, eye contact with the camera, because we are not looking at each other eye to eye. So the camera is the eye. So I'm looking in the eye of the camera, and by that I'm looking in your eyes. So this is digital body language. How do you set up your background? How do you appear? What are your dressing? Still make a difference, at least for the part that appears on the camera. So this is really important. The last two parts that I would touch upon very quickly is the use of general knowledge and IQ, other than the emotional intelligence. It would help the people to understand that you are living in the real world. It is not only the technical knowledge, it is not only the certification knowledge that you hold. You know what is the context in which organization is working, what are the real challenges, for example, in the industry, for example, the new policy given by the government, the new inflation rates, layoffs, kind of things. So again, you have to actually build a complete picture. So these are the different ingredients that you would be able to put together to paint a picture. So with that, I would move to the question and answer session. I hope that you would get the slides from the organizers, and you can read for yourself. And still after the session, if there is anything, my contact are given on this slide, and you can reach me. I always prioritize to support my ASQ colleagues. So over to you, Carol.
Let me unmute myself. Okay, I'm going to let Doug take over. We're going to start the Q&A. Thank you so much, Zubair. I want to say thank you to Mark and Kaylee also. I appreciate the time and preparation that all of you gave for your presentations. And the reason why I was looking over the side, I was trying to read all the different questions that people have been putting in the chats and telling them, be sure to ask that during this question and answer period. So I'm going to ask everybody, and I'm sure Doug probably has rules for this, but be sure when you ask your question, state who you're asking it to, or all three are going to try and answer at the same time.
All right, Dennis, you want
Yes,
to close us out
let's
here?
make sure that these closing comments, as profound as they're going to be, are recorded forever. No, honestly, I just wanted to extend a personal thank you and on behalf of the QMD to our three presenters. Thank you for making this such a wonderful night and so value added for all of our members. And I really want to especially thank Doug and Carol for putting this together. It's been tonight's been a long time coming, and they've invested a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in getting this to happen. And on behalf of all of our members, I really want to say thank you. We appreciate that. Lastly, just thank you to all of you who came and availed yourself of our presenters' experience and expertise. We thank you for coming. you know, at the end of the day, all of us do what we do because of you and to serve you. So we're glad we had such a wonderful turnout. Please join us if you can next Tuesday night, just a few days away, for our Quality Management Division annual general meeting. It's a great chance to meet with some of us, hear about what we've been up to this past year, share your thoughts, and we love to hear from you. Again, we exist to serve you. So thank you for tonight, and please, if you can, join us next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern. You'll get a link and for our annual general meeting. So with that, back to Doug or Carol just to say farewell.
Okay, so Carol, you got any closing comments?
Well, I'll just leave on a funny. Having been a hiring manager for 20 plus years, you know, my last one, I was at GE Nuclear. And so trying to hire a nuclear quality engineer, you know, I'm looking for a lot of very specific knowledge. And I got hundreds of resumes and applicants. And I had everything from grave diggers to chefs to gas station attendants that were applying for my nuclear quality engineer. And then having to respond to all of them and say, you don't really meet so try and make sure you're at least, you know, applying for things you somewhat qualify for, you know, at least hit the 20%. But that's just my funny for the night. Thank you, everybody. It was great. I really appreciate everybody that took, this is a lot of time, but I think we had some great information. We had some great speakers. Thank you to everybody.